Welcome to the Sons and Daughters podcast.
What's up,
I
guys?
am Julie, joined by my brother-in-law, financial whiz. So listen up, Austin Bevere,
Hey.
and my amazing husband, Addison. And today we are going to talk to you guys about money.
Money.
Money, money, money.
Yeah, we're just going to say that the whole time. Money, money, money.
How many different tunes can we do?
Is that
There's
a song?
lot of songs
There's
about
a
money.
ton
Yeah,
of
money
songs
in the
about-
bank. Shorty, what you drink?
Whoa.
Like, what's your
Okay.
favorite Starbucks
We
drink?
do not endorse that song for the record.
I don't even know what song that is.
I have
I've
no
never
idea what she's
heard
talking about.
It
those
probably
words
is
before in my
before a lot
life.
of your time, not yours.
All the parents
No,
out there, I
that was my high
apologize
school.
for my wife's bad
Anyway,
behavior.
we're talking about money today. And we know money can be a touchy subject, depending on the family you grew up in.
That's kind of interesting, isn't it? How people get weird about money. It's like you
Yeah.
can talk about a lot of things, but when you talk about money, people are like, oh.
I think it's because a lot of people use it as a measuring stick of how value or how their status. And so
Yeah.
that's probably why it's touchy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of
For
self-conscious.
the record, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, don't use
Should
money.
we just say that?
Yes, that's
Okay.
the first lesson
Yeah,
is
first
don't use
lesson
money for your value.
To measure
evaluation
someone's
of yourself.
value.
Yeah.
That's good enough, guys.
That's
I think
good.
we
All
should
right.
probably just
Next
close it down.
podcast.
That's good.
No, but really, like, why should money matter to
Why
us?
should we talk about money today?
Why should we
Yeah.
talk about money? Why should we even care about money? I mean, we're Christians. We're sons and daughters. Shouldn't we just kind of give all of our money to the church and live like Jesus? You know?
That's
All
not a bad thing.
The
And I
wealthy
think-
ladies.
Jesus did tell someone to do that, but I don't like to the majority of people, he didn't give that advice, and Jesus used money. And so we have to figure out now, how should we approach money?
Yeah,
And
that's
so
good.
I think there's two sides to this. I think there's people that are really obsessed with money. And then there's people that are like, oh, I just don't care about money. And sadly, sometimes they don't have any of it. And I think either one of those camps, you end up being a slave to it because you need money to make, to I don't know, to live, if that makes sense.
It's a valuing system of everything.
And it's a tool.
Yeah, it is. It's a tool.
So we have a couple verses we want to throw down real quick at the beginning.
It's good. Let's start with biblical wisdom.
Yes.
Yes.
So last night, the verse that came into my mind, just as I was thinking about today, was Proverbs 23:4 or Proverbs 23:4-5. I recommend checking it out. Solomon was the one who wrote this. He had tons of money, but he said, don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. And the next verse kind of talks about like, hey, it's going to one day go away. And whether that's the end of your life, you know, you can't take money with you. But eventually, you know, you're going to have to do something with your money. You can't take it to the next life. But here in this life, it's a tool, but don't let it drive you and don't let that be your obsession in life. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of the verse that really
It's good.
resonated
Wisdom.
with me.
Yeah,
Yes.
let money serve you. Don't
Yeah, use
serve
it as
money.
a tool.
Yeah.
Love other people, to
Yeah.
take care of your needs, stuff like that.
And I like what Jesus says in Matthew 6. He says, you can't serve God and money. You can only have one master. And really, what that should say is you can't serve mammon. And what mammon is it's this world system of value. It's the world system of control. And then Jesus goes into, right after that, he talks about anxiety and how when you serve money, you live a life that's marked by anxiety.
Wow.
And so the reality is money's supposed to be something that serves us. We shouldn't serve money.
Yeah. And I will say this real quick. One of the easiest ways to get the hold of money off your life is to give. And it doesn't even have to be a big
Absolutely.
amount. Give money. And like, I would recommend doing it personally, like give
And
it
purposely.
Yeah.
Not
And don't just
casually.
be like, oh, I'm going to automatically deduct it, which is fine. Or I'm going to give it just to an offering or a tithe. I would recommend like giving money because there's something amazing that happens when you're like, I'm not going to let this be my master.
Yes.
I'm giving this away.
That's
And
so good.
that's what we want to do. We want to flip your mindset of, hey, I'm going to live a life as a slave to money, whether that I don't have enough money or that's all I think about, to money is my servant.
Money's my slave.
Money is my
Yeah.
slave. So
That's good.
And don't be concerned when you're wanting to give. I know Addison and I we wanted to give $1,000 to a fellow couple. We just both separately, God put it on our heart to do it. And then it felt like we put the money in a card and we're on our way to give it to him. And all of this anxiety about like, what if they think we're, you know, inferring that they need this, or like, what if they reject it? I mean, these crazy thoughts.
I'll
Like,
never reject your money.
well, and no one will ever reject your money.
Yeah.
Like, I've even felt the Holy Spirit tell me to buy people's meal before, and it was like a pregnant lady in her pajamas. And I was like, well, she might think that I'm like judging her by doing that. And generosity is always accepted. Even
Yeah.
if they were to reject it in the moment, the act of generosity, there's nothing like it. Like, it is so purposeful and beautiful.
I don't want to get off on giving. It is going that way. But I do remember when I was in high school, I went to Panda Express with some friends, and I had packed my lunch that day. I had already forgotten. So I ate my lunch and I went there.
You were that guy.
Yeah. And so a lady came up and she gave me like, hey, here's $10 to go get yourself
some orange
food.
chicken.
And I was like, no, it's totally fine. I've already eaten. But it was so kind. Like, that was so kind of her to just be like, hey, I noticed you. And that's when you give something away that is perceived valuable, you're saying, I notice you and you are valuable.
That's so good.
And so I think that's awesome.
Can I interject something real quickly on that? Because I know we're talking about giving, and when people think about money, they don't necessarily think about giving, but there's 4 things that you can do with money.
Okay.
And giving is one of those 4.
Yeah.
So what are the other 3? Okay,
let me ask. What are the other 3? What are the 3?
Here are the other 3. Ready? So first, you can give your money. You can save your money, which means you're putting it away to spend at a later date. You can invest your money, or you can spend your money.
Yep.
Spend it. And what do we do with the majority of our money?
You spend it.
We spend it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they really don't have context. They don't have framework for the other 3. And so I hope we're able to give some framework for the other 3 things that we can do with our money. So I think it's important that we hit on giving.
Well, and before we get to the other 3, I think we should talk about spending.
Yeah.
Talking about spending money that you don't actually have. And I know entering into y'all's family over 10 years ago.
Charge it.
Yeah, I came in and saw that the culture that your parents had created in you boys was very different than what I ever grew up seeing, or even in my groups of friends, that there was such an emphasis on saving over spending, and the idea of spending what you didn't have was nowhere in the equation.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear from you guys. How was that something that was just ingrained into who you were, and how has it paid off? You know, you recently got married. You've been married a while.
10 years.
4 kids. You know, there's some expenses in your life. So how have those values that, you know, you sacrifice for it? You ate your sack lunch at Panda Express, and instead of spending money, you walked away.
Did you save that $10, or did you actually buy yourself some orange chicken?
I said, no, that's totally fine. And I was like, please, I'm not going to
So you
accept
rejected
this.
her generosity?
I rejected it. I'm sorry.
Bro, that's messed up.
I'm
like,
sorry,
you were just
guys.
making the point earlier that people don't reject
I'm
generosity.
a new man.
Wow.
No, this is kidding. No,
We're gonna need to
I
edit that.
still, you still feel the heart of it. But I will say this. Okay, so our parents taught us, hey, save your money. And so some of the big things
Big on savings.
that taught us that is we had to, there's things in our life where our parents didn't basically give us everything. And we had to, I remember, work for a car. Like, our summers we would work to save up for a car. So that was my first big thing, was like, I'm saving up for this. And my mom at the time, she would say, hey, you're going to shop at these clothing stores. And I was like, I don't want to shop at those. I want to shop at these. And so I'd use some of my savings to go buy the clothes that I wanted to. But basically it kept, when I think about money, there's like, okay, there's things in my future that are important decisions that I want to save for.
Yeah.
One of those are providing for my family or buying a house or things like that. And I knew I would need a down payment for a house or a car or something like that, which meant, okay, right now I can't spend 100% of the money I have.
Yeah.
And so just kind of was like, okay, was that 80%, 70%, just whatever it is, it has to be less than that 100.
Yeah. And what would you say to someone who sees those big things like a house or a car, but doesn't really equate the small purchases like the daily Starbucks, or, you know, things that are slightly frivolous or just not necessities? They don't make the connection between those two. How would you try to connect that for them?
I think the easiest way would be to do a budget. Like, and it sounds, it's kind of, some people believe in budgeting, other people don't. It's good to just write out, even if it's one time.
Yeah.
Here's what I make in the month. Here's what taxes take. Here's what I have to spend. Here's what I have left over. And calculate that and add you want to share anything on budgeting?
Yeah, no, I think budgets are great when they're tied to a cause.
Yeah.
Because if they're not tied to a cause, people, they lose sight of their budget. They stop looking at their budget. So I would say find a goal, find an aim. So whether that's the house or the car or just getting out of debt, whatever it is, and attach that to your budget. And that'll help you identify what things are essentials and what things are non-essentials. And then you can hone in on the essentials, and those things that are non-essential, you can start putting that money into other things like savings, like investing, that will make money for you and help you toward your ultimate purchase or whatever that thing is that you're building toward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first step being just pay attention. Pay attention to
have awareness.
the money that's coming in, the money that's going out. And I think even on a deeper level, look at the why. Like what friends make you spend more money than you would want to spend just to be a part of the moment or the experience. Like really evaluate those things on a level of like, what is this actually costing me? Because
Good, Julie.
I think you can have the mentality like, I can't take my money with me, so I'm just going to spend it to make me happy in the moment. But that be having, so many pitfalls, because it also gets you into a cycle of thinking like money makes you happy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think paying attention. What are some other steps people could take who have found an awareness of money or really have come to this place through a lack of an awareness of money and want to move forward in health, want to move forward with the freedom that comes from not having those worries piling up on top of you?
I would say make the most important things the first things that you do. Right. So what I mean by that is, again, 4 things you could do with your money. Every month you should set aside your giving, your tithe. Like that should be the first thing that you do. Set that aside. The second thing you should set aside is your savings. Every month. And then third, I would set aside your amount for investing. And then the rest you live on, the rest you spend. And the percentages will change as you grow, as you make more money, but the discipline will remain the same. And I think having a lack of money is actually a blessing. A lot of us, when we're in our early 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s, teenage years, we don't have that much money. And if we had an abundance of money during that season, we wouldn't learn the disciplines that you have to learn when you have scarcity, when you're in a situation of scarcity, because the abundance covers the lack. Right? So I think it's actually a blessing when you're young and you have to learn these disciplines, because they set you up to handle abundance when you start making more money later in life. So I would say figure out what those percentages are, make a goal. Like for us, our goal is to give close to 20% away each year. Like that's our goal. And then our goal is to do 10% savings and 10% investing. Now we didn't start there. Julie and I, when we were in our early 20s, we were looking at our budget being like, how in the world are we going to make it month to month? And we lived very tight, and we had to not spend aggressively. Like people spend aggressively, we had to not spend aggressively. But we learned disciplines that now have really helped us manage more money as we've been blessed with more, as we've gotten older and had more opportunities to make money.
That's awesome. And I'm gonna jump into some like things I was thinking of when you were talking, Julie, of just practical things you can do.
Yeah.
So something I did when I was in college is I opened a college credit card, had a $500 limit, but I would use it like a checking account or use it like a debit card and pay it off every month so I could build my credit. So that's something I'd recommend doing. Is if you're in college right now, go see if your college offers some sort of college credit card. And then if you're out of college, just figure out, like, I would look for a cash back card. That's what I started with. Was I would get 1% to 3% basically on what type of purchase I had. And that way it was kind of like, okay, if I spend $100 here, I'm going to get $1 to $3 back, which is basically free money. And so that's why credit cards, if they're used as a debit card, have a leg up on a debit card, because you don't get those savings.
But you have to pay it off every month.
Yeah. Otherwise, it just doesn't make
card.
sense, because instead of getting 1% back, you're giving like 15% to your credit card company. And so just something that I did at an early age is we started that, and that'll allow you to build your credit to buy a house or a car or whatever you need to in the future. And so, yeah, that's just kind of one like really practical thing I'd recommend doing. And a stat, just so, since money can be taboo, you're like, where does everybody else landing on this?
Yeah.
There's a stat I read that 50% of Americans don't have $1,000 saved up.
Wow.
And so here's the thing. We have a lot of expenses, and a lot of things can just happen. Like life can happen. And so I would recommend, like, you need to build up some sort of account, like a safety net.
Safety
almost,
net, yeah.
in case
Short-term
something-
savings.
Yeah. And so one very practical thing you can do is be like, hey, I'm competitive. So I'm saying I'm competitive. I like to know, hey, where do I stand? Like with how everybody's doing. And that's a good benchmark of, hey, if I can save up $1,000, I'm doing good. Like, and then build from there, because yeah, it's a good kind of benchmark of, hey, maybe that's my first goal, is to save up $1,000 and to put that in a savings account. So just a thought.
Yeah. Before people move into savings, if they have any credit card debt, do you think that they should tackle that first?
So yeah, absolutely. Here's my thought. If you have student loans or credit card debt, so student loans are going to charge you about 5% interest. That's really about the going rate there. Credit cards are going to be in the teens. So first priority would be get rid of your credit card debt. And then the second priority would be knock out your student loans. That's a great question. Absolutely. Because if not, it's sitting in a bank account.
Yeah.
Earning like 1 or 2%, whereas you're
not
you're
even 1 or 2%.
Okay.
Most bank accounts.
Here's all right. So bank account I use, if you guys are interested, do your own research. But the one that I love is Ally Bank. I get 2.2% interest, which is really
nice. Is that
nice.
a money market account?
It's not a money market account. It's just a savings account. So, and it's insured. There's no way I'm going to lose that money. It's backed up by the government. So, yeah, it's pretty nice.
And like Austin said, do your own research. And even where we started saying that talking about money can feel so taboo, you need to find those people who you see have managed their money well, who are stages ahead of you even, and ask them. Ask them one-on-one, and they will want to share with you. And it can feel scary, but you will not believe the amount of respect that they will have for you coming to them and saying, listen, the world of money is scary and there are so many different opinions. Can you help me? Can you give me the knowledge that you clearly are using in your own life and help me move forward? Because I know you guys have both had individuals who you've gone to and have given you incredible advice.
And mentors, they're looking for that kind of initiative.
People love to be able to help.
Yeah.
And that's the way they practically can do that. And I will say this, I would recommend exactly what Julie's doing, because the advice I got from those people were not what I thought it was going to be. And I was actually really surprised by some of the advice I got.
Yeah.
And so,
but everyone has opinions.
Yeah.
Not everyone has wisdom.
Yes.
So you want to go to people who are actually doing what you want to do.
Yeah.
They're where you want to be as far as your financial position, because everyone's going to have an opinion.
Yeah.
And if you listen to all the opinions, you're going to be running all over the place. So identify some people in your life. You're like, hey, these people, they have a good relationship with money. They know what they're doing with money. Go to them and ask, seek, knock.
Oh my
Get their
gosh.
wisdom.
And do not ask them for money.
No.
Don't ask them for money. You ask them for wisdom because they have stewarded their money well. But I just feel like I have to say, don't ask them for money. You are asking them for advice, for wisdom, for knowledge, which is, it can feel cliche to say, but more valuable in the long run.
Yeah. And two things, when we were talking about this before, we use the example of the game Monopoly. And if you look at a Monopoly board, you have many different spots that you can land on and buy. And I remember when I was first thinking about finances for myself, I was like, I don't know the best move to make. I don't know the right move to make. And the cool thing about the game Monopoly is you can win that game multiple ways. Like you don't have to always have the blues. You don't always have to have the reds. There are multiple ways to win, basically.
Yeah.
And so what I'd recommend, and something we all firmly agree on, is just get started.
Yeah.
And what that meant for me was I started doing research. Like I started looking at bank accounts, like who has the best savings account. I started reading books on the weekend about finance. And this was not stuff that I was like, man, this is so great. And I do love finance, but I also realized, hey, this is a huge part of my life. I've learned about math. I've learned about science. I need to learn about finance. Like, I don't know why. Honestly, I wasn't sure why that wasn't taught more to me in school. And so I was like, I need to educate myself. And so I would totally recommend doing that, is like start small. If that means opening a savings account, if that means looking into a credit card, like a college credit card or a small credit card that you could use, that means doing a budget. Like what I did is I Googled, because I didn't have a budget, I just Googled personal budget, and there's actually one in Google Docs or Google spreadsheets where it literally lays everything out, and you just have to enter in your information. It tells you where you're at. And so that's what I've used for our family for like the last 5 years. And so like me and Jess. And so there's little things you can do to just start, like just start somewhere, figure where you're at. And even if you're like, man, I don't even have a job right now. Okay. The first step you can do is learn. Yeah. Like, because you're going to have a job, you're going to have money come in, and one day you're going to have more money than you have expenses, and you're going to know what Addison was talking about. Be someone who gives, be someone who invests, and where to invest. And so, those are just kind of some practical things we can do with our money right now, regardless of how much we have.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and the floor for investing is pretty much, I mean, it's been lowered so far. There are apps like Betterment and M1 where you can get in with a few dollars a week. You can start investing and start learning some of the basics of investing. And again, it's not about doing everything right or doing everything perfect. It's about getting started. You're going to make mistakes. I want you to hear this. You are going to make mistakes with your money. Yeah. But you're not going to learn what those mistakes are until you actually get out there and start doing something. And so the big thing that I would challenge you to do is figure out a strategy for giving, for saving, for investing, and spending. And I think the best way to identify a strategy for spending is to make yourself identify what you're spending your money on.
Wow.
Just start there.
Yeah.
Start there. And that will, honestly, it'll open your eyes to your money in ways that you just can't see until you take the time to actually line out all your expenses.
Yeah. That's so good. And honestly, like, these are two guys who have lived this, who were able to walk into season after season of their life prepared because they had been stewards of their money, because they had allowed their money to serve them. They hadn't served their money. And so, guys, we thank you so much for tuning in with us, for just listening and gleaning from the wisdom that we have to offer. And we want to encourage you to, continue. The world of money is very vast, and we would love to hear from you on specifics. Austin is so passionate about money and really could just go so far into this. So if you want that, if that's what, our listeners are looking for, we would love to know, because that is an area that it matters. It's important that we are examples
Good
of
stewards.
Rising above. Yeah, really what it looks like to rise above the status quo, to rise above what you're seeing around you in the world of finances.
And if there is a place where they're listening or watching to leave comments, leave a comment of, hey, I want to learn about retirement, or I want to learn about how to save up for a house, or anything, like any
or
topic.
Different philosophies of investing, or
we want to help. Yeah. Like, this is something that we would love to help with. We were very blessed with our upbringing of just the know-how of this, and we've taught ourselves, and we would love to help.
And we know some smart people that we could bring on too to speak to these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Way smarter than us.
So let us know. Leave a comment and subscribe to this podcast, because we don't want you guys to miss a thing. And thanks for tuning in. We love you guys.
Thanks so much for listening, guys.